What's going on, guys? Nick Lesagore here, Exit 12 Homebrew in the house. It's been a while, but there hasn't been a shortage or a stoppage of things that have been happening in the brewery. So before I talk about anything, let's grab a pour. Okay, this beer is a honey blonde ale that we call weekend mulching, because that's all Brandon does on the weekend is mulch. This is the second time we've brewed this beer, and the first time we used 8 ounces of a honey that we got from Beer and Wine Hobby, www.beer-wine.com. Awesome local homebrew store in Danvers, Massachusetts, an official sponsor of the BrewTubers Club. And it came out really well. We added it with like 10 minutes left in the boil, but I wanted to switch it up the second time around because we didn't get enough honey character. So I bought a local honey here in Massachusetts from a local coffee roaster called Restoration Coffee in Whitman. And they have a honey, they supply a honey that it's infused with lemon and ginger. And I added it, it's 12 ounces, I believe, it's either 12 or 16 ounces in the recipe. And I added it at the end of the boil. So let's get a nose on this. Yeah, I get a little bit of the ginger. Came in at about 4.7%, perfect summer sipper. We added a Whirlfloc tablet, and we added gelatin, and this thing is clear on clear. Just like the first iteration, this one took a little bit longer to clear out, but it's very nicely clear. I'm gonna take a sip of this, l'chaim. Oh, I've been drinking all weekend. Get that ginger, a little bit of that lemon, but there is a nice big honey character on the nose and on the flavor. The sweetness of the malt comes through real nice. Oh, this is so good. Brandon did get to have this one. So the people, our club members over at BrewTubers will be happy to know that. So we have actually been doing a ton around the brewery lately. I'll have a video coming out soon, but Mike, Trans Am guy, came over, spent the weekend, drove from Pennsylvania. I met him at Treehouse, and then we came down to my house for the weekend, and we did a triple brew day with Brandon. We brewed our barrel-aged Imperial Coffee Milk Stout that we do every year. That was made for a wedding, my wife and I's wedding actually, that we gave out as wedding favors. And I brew it once a year, I try to. And so this year, Mike brought his 3-vessel system to brew, and we used his big system to brew because he usually brews 10 gallons. And so we parsed it down to 5. Ended up with an OG of 1.122. It's currently fermenting, it's stalled at like 0.60. I did a 3-stage starter on it. So I was expecting it to stall, just not at that point. So I'm gonna order a couple of more packages of the WLP 002 English Ale, and I'm gonna just throw them in and see if I can get that down more, because 8% just ain't cutting it for that stout, babe. Just ain't cutting it. The second beer we do is actually a Partaguile. We threw 2 pounds of rye malt that Mike had that he purchased a long time ago. He brought it with him. We threw 2 pounds in and then what we ended up doing is just taking some water that we had heated to strike temp, and we mashed in with the grains that we had from the stout. So we're doing a rye porter that is pretty much finished. The tilt reads like 008. I'm gonna take a reading in a day or two to see where we're at, but that beer should be kegged pretty soon. As you know, with the stout, that's a year-long process. So once we can get that down to where I like it, we'll end up transferring it to secondary on coffee for about 6 months, and then we're gonna throw it in a barrel for like 4 to 6. So I'm really, really pumped about that. And then the third beer we did was an Oktoberfest. It was actually Mike's recipe, but it was a little bit more of a collab. We used Golden Promise instead of what he usually uses, which I think is like a 2-row, maybe a Pilsner. I know he wasn't super excited about the Pilsner. So 3 pretty much collab beers. We collaborated on the stout. The stout was pretty much Exit 12 recipe, but the Oktoberfest was a collab, and then the porter was a collab. The rye malt was a great idea by Mike. So 8-hour brew day, started around 10:30, finished past 6:30. I smoked a real nice 8-pound brisket, full brisket, and then we had some beers out by the fire. Perfect day. Big thanks to Mike for coming down with his system. His propane 3-vessel system was really cool to see. You know, awesome to be able to do 10 gallons, and hopefully in the near future, Brandon and I are brewing 10 gallons. I'll get to that in a future video. But we did some other things around the brewery, kind of putted around today, Sunday fun day. So I'd been meaning to do some work on my kegerator. Mike was kind enough, he brought like these really heavy duty drill bits, and he drilled into the back of my tower, because the tower, the 3rd tap is actually an extender. And the 3rd tap, because of the weight of the Bruins tap, kept tilting forward. I could just change the tap handles, but the Bruins tap is actually like really kind of clunky and big, and so you want it at the very top, otherwise it interferes with the other one. So he came before Mike left, he drilled into the back of the tower, and so today I switched some things around, and I was able to secure the extender, the tower extender, so that when pouring beers it doesn't automatically tilt forward and I run into a bunch of issues. And also aesthetically it just looks better. I also tightened up the shanks on the kegerator so that they're a lot tighter. So some cool little upgrades being made, getting some things done around the brewery, and handling some things. Coming up next, we're actually going to be doing a wet hop beer. We're going to be also doing a separate beer brewed with Phantasm. Really excited to see how that works. It's going to be like a club collab. Everybody's going to be doing different beers, and we're going to ship them to each other, and we're going to try them on Zoom one night with the Phantasm, so that's cool. But speaking of the hops, as I just mentioned a second ago, the hops are almost ready to be picked. So for a hop update, let's head over to Exit 12 Farm, shall we? All right, here at Exit 12 Farms, and we're starting here with the Columbus. This is the only like hop that I've used that I chose from the 4 plants, as you can hear. I don't know if you could hear that or not. The hops on this plant are the lowest. I can reach right up and grab some hops, and the cones are decent sized. Oddly enough, this is the plant that had the least amount of sun. So going to the Hartwick, which are the landrace, one of 3 landrace hops. As you can tell, the leaves have like disappeared on them. So what they're doing is they're turning this yellow, and then what they're doing is they're kind of easily pulled off. So they're dying too, which is interesting. But the hops are bountiful, so I'm getting a ton of hops. And as you can see, they're grown up pretty far. For second-year plants, they're actually coming out pretty good. Here, this is the Arcadian. And same thing with the Arcadian as with the Hartwick. I mean, the leaves are in a little bit better condition rather. But the hops grew all the way up, and they are they are the farthest along for sure, which is interesting because the Prussian plant was the one that started off like gangbusters, and then when I planted it, kind of slowed down a little bit. But as you can see, nice growth there. And judging by the sounds, these things, yeah, They're crunchy. These things are going to be ready to go probably within the next week, I'd say. Things looking pretty good here. Got some tomatoes. Those are cherry tomatoes. These are like bigger plum tomatoes. I got a ton of eggplant this year. Huge eggplants. Some nice cukes. And then we got some stuff over there. We got different peppers, serrano peppers, more tomatoes. Got a couple of pumpkins growing over there and some plants here to entice the bees that my neighbor has. And then here, some overgrown mint and dill, which really needs to be trimmed, and basil. So overall looking pretty good, I'd say. Looking to brew at least one fresh hop beer. One wet hop beer rather. And then I'm gonna package up the rest. But not bad. Yeah, the hops are looking sweet. Those are second-year plants. I got them as plugs, which are different than rhizomes. Plugs are first-year plants. So I'm gonna see what I end up getting off of them. I'm actually gonna purchase a separate screen, like a door, like a screen door screen. And I'm gonna take the old one we have, I'm gonna take that out, and I'm gonna use that as my hop screen. And the new screen will go into our slider door that leads right out onto the deck, our raised deck. So I'm also gonna buy a couple of horses, just things you need around the house, as one will do their own kind of home improvement projects. So believe it or not, some guys in the club don't think so, but believe it or not, I do some pretty cool home projects. I'm not super handy, but I do some cool stuff. So here is the beer. I'm gonna go upstairs, I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna start doing some more research on the best way to utilize those hops that are out in the farm area, my garden oasis, and we'll go from there. But for now, in the immediate future, as I mentioned, we have a wet hop beer coming up. Any hops I don't use, I'm just gonna package up. I have a vacuum sealer, so I'll just package those bad boys up. And I know maybe next year, I'm gonna do some collab beers with Dave, Big Dog Brewing, who also has Michigan hops, different hops than the ones I have. So we're gonna ship them back and forth to each other and do some pretty cool collabs, which is something that I'm really looking forward to. Being able to grow your own ingredients and use them on site is absolutely ideal. In an ideal world next year, I'll be using homegrown hops, and my neighbor just got bees. So next year he'll be getting some honey. So doing a version of the weekend mulching with honey, his honey, and our hops would be really cool. That's like best case scenario for the area I'm in. I basically live in front of a swamp. So that is best case scenario for cultivating your own land, if you will. But it's Sunday Fun Day, as I mentioned. I'm gonna go enjoy this. Big thanks to all our sponsors, and thanks for watching. We got more videos, more content coming. Check out the podcast. Brandon does a fantastic job editing it. That's his passion project. Take the time, subscribe, the Exit 12 Craft Beer and Homebrew Lifestyle Podcast. We get a little bit more X-rated, if you will, on that podcast. We're a lot more honest, for sure. So check that one out. Thanks so much for watching. L'chaim.